Events around the world are hitting African economies hard. For several years, the issue of migration, both legal and illegal, has been a topic of discussion across the continent. Today, we look into the JAPA trend in Africa's largest economy. What does it tell us about the state of the economy and the future of Africa's most populous nation? We'll also get into a discussion on cybersecurity and how we can get more women active in the sector. This is Business Edge. I'm Tolulope Adeleru-Balogun. African Business Headlines is up first. Egypt's non-oil private sector activity shrank again in July, but at a slower pace than June's two-year low, as demand remains weakened by inflation and shortages continue to put pressure on supply. This S&P Global Egypt Purchasing Managers Index strengthened slightly to 46.4 from June's 45.2, remaining below the 50 line that denotes growth. July was the 20th straight month of contraction. S&P adds that the manufacturing, construction, wholesale, and retail as well as service sectors have all seen a contraction. South African private sector activity growth sped up for the third straight month in July on improving new orders, output, and employment numbers. The S&P Global South Africa Purchasing Managers Index rose to a 14-month high of 52.7 in July, up slightly from 52.5 in June. Readings above 50 indicate growth in activity. New orders, outputs, and employment registered the quickest rates of expansion since mid-2021. And staying in the country, the rand regained some ground on Wednesday as China's response to U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan was not as severe as some in financial markets had feared. Earlier this morning, the South African currency traded at 16.6800 to the dollar, nearly 1% stronger than its previous close. On Tuesday, it lost almost 2%. Also providing support to rand assets in a relatively light week for domestic economic data, a Purchasing Managers Index survey showed South African private sector activity expanded for the third month in a row in July. The South African government's benchmark 2030 bond was slightly weaker in early deals, with the yield up 2 basis points to 10.365%. Nigeria's multi-purpose Lekki Deep Sea Port is more than 95% complete, with construction slated for completion by September 2020. The company behind the construction explained that the port operations will begin by the end of the year, considering that dredging and reclamation work is 98% done, while work on the Kwa Wall is almost finished. In March, Nigeria's Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, disclosed that the Lekki Deep Sea Port, once operational, is expected to contribute $360 billion to the Nigerian economy over 45 years. Tanzania and Zambia have resolved to revamp the railway line that connects the two countries as part of their measures to improve bilateral ties. In collaboration with the private sector and development partners, the bi-national railway connecting the Southern African Regional Transport Network to Eastern Africa's seaports of Dar es Salaam will now be upgraded to a standard gauge railway. In the meeting where this was announced, the president also discussed issues around the modernization of the 1,710-kilometer crude oil pipeline that links the two countries, as well as how to eradicate some tax and non-tax barriers to unlock trade. And those are a few of the business headlines at this time. You are watching Business Edge. When we come back, the JAPA trend in Nigeria and the effects on the economy of the largest country on the continent. Stay with us. Nigerian human resources professionals from a number of companies in a range of sectors are expecting to lose large numbers of their staff as foreign postgraduate courses begin in September 2022. It's only part of a trend that has seen Nigeria lose a large number of skilled workers to the labor markets of countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, the US, and the Netherlands. In 2017, a survey by polling company NOI Polls showed that 90% of Nigerian doctors were looking for opportunities abroad. In 2019, there were over 6,000 medical doctors of Nigerian origin in the United Kingdom. This was a 44% increase from 2015's number. Now, over half of the 72,000 doctors registered with the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria practice outside of the country. Nigeria is in the midst of a brain drain that will have lasting consequences for the economy and the country's potential growth. Let's look at just how the JAPA trend, as it's known, is and could impact Nigeria. Joining me from Lagos right now is Samuel Oyekanmi, Senior Research Analyst for Nairametrics. Samuel, welcome to Business Edge. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Morning. So for the viewers who don't know, JAPA is a word that originates from two Yoruba words, ja, which means to run, and pa, which is sort of an exaggeration. It basically means something is more important or bigger than it really is. So when you combine the two, JAPA means to run swiftly, usually away from something. So Samuel, let's start with that. What's driving the JAPA trend in Nigeria right now? Why are so many Nigerians running away from the country?
Of course, it's the way the Nigerian economy is right now. There's so much uncertainty from the macro, fiscal, and then social economic side. The level of insecurity right now in Nigeria is really at its worst. Traveling from one state to another, you're not secured right now. The fact that we have a lot of banditry, kidnapping, and even bad roads causing accidents and all. So that's discouraged a lot of people from living in the country. And worst of all now is the economic part, because a lot of people do not really have the confidence that there's really hope for the average youth in Nigeria anymore, considering that the fact that an estimate of at least almost 40 million Nigerians are out of jobs from 2020 estimate, which we actually believe it's more now if we have to go by recent developments. And that's just a great indication of how there's really not so much job out there for people. Nigerian universities, students in Nigerian universities have been out of school for over 5 months, and it does not look like anything is going to happen anytime soon. That's really big discouragement. The fact that the purchasing power of people is being eroded day in, day out. There's just so much uncertainties, and everyone just wants to go to a place where they believe that it could always be better. Of course, the grass is always green on the other side. But then, right now, Nigerian youth just feel like any other place is better than what we're experiencing right now in Nigeria, and that's just really a roller coaster, really.
So I noticed you mentioned Nigerian youth, but we'll also get into the class of people, because there is a socioeconomic conversation or dynamic to this, and it's not just the youth who are running. But before that, you recently wrote on this trend, particularly speaking to human resource managers. Share some of their experiences with us. What is happening in companies across the country?
So yeah, companies are losing a lot of their best hands, and interestingly, a lot of their staff around the IT department are really leaving, and that's because there's a great appreciation right now for tech-based or data-based profession. So a lot of companies around the world are now offering jobs to them, and of course, anyone wants to earn in dollars, no matter how it is, because it just always seems like it's better than earning in naira right now, and that's really one of the problems that most of these companies are going through right now. There's this term called the Great Resignation that is going on now. Companies lose the best hands, either to bigger multinationals, or the fact that some of them just feel like, okay, I don't want to go to office 9 to 5 anymore. I can work remote job thanks to COVID. Why can't I just stay at home and then apply to work remotely for any company abroad, and I'll earn in dollars, and then we'll be fine. So a lot of these companies are having to go through this. Interviewing a number of them, some of them have had to process 32 resignations in just less than a month. Had someone who said that they've had over 50 resignations between beginning of July and the end of July. That's just massive. Tells you that there are a lot of empty spaces, vacant spaces that they will have to fill. Even in the utility sector, we are getting information that not even the low rank officials anymore, even top management officials are taking their bags and they are leaving the country, resigning, either because they get some better offer abroad, or they just want to relocate their family, feeling like it is better for their children to grow up in a more sane environment, according to them. So it's really what they are going through right now. And we still project that there's still going to be a lot more resignations in August, because some people are not due to travel until the end of August and even in the beginning of September.
So you brought up two very valuable points I want us to follow up on, and that's the fact that when you see these resignations happen, you would assume that there is now a gap. You made mention of an estimated 40 million Nigerians being unemployed. Of course, we're not going to see these resignations absolutely employ 40 million Nigerians, but there's a gap created when people are leaving for whatever their reasons may be. The flip side of that is that employers in Nigeria say they're finding it difficult to make up for the loss in talent. So where is that sort of dissonance coming from? You would expect that if you see 50 resignations, you're able to find at least 50 Nigerians to fill those spots, but it's not exactly happening like that.
Yes, it won't happen because some of these people who resigned have gone through training. So the company have invested in this human resources over the years, train them. They are like experts in that field that they are covering, and then them just hopping and leaving leaves a vacant space. It's not something that you just want to employ a fresh graduate or someone who does not have as much experience to come and fill. So the chances are they probably will just have to promote some of their low-ranking officials or staff upward, and then employ some some fresh graduates to fill the lower ranks and then train. I was speaking to a CEO last month at an event, and he was saying they're really having to deal with that a lot in the organization, and it's just a big one because they had to, of course, devise another means by which they ensure that they do not have massive brain drain. But then, if as a young person, or even not young, you see an offer from a country, probably UK, Canada, or the US, that is offering better pay, better environment, where you have better social facilities for your children and for your family. Of course, you probably would want to take it no matter what you are probably being paid in Nigeria. And that's really what is happening. It's a gap, really. Those that are leaving are quite experienced, and those in the market now that are looking to take up a job are fresh graduates. So it's going to be a job now for companies to have to train them in as fast as possible so that they can be able to fill those positions.
All right, so let's also look at the socioeconomic angle, because you did mention the fact that also we see people in middle management, we're seeing bank managers, we're seeing upper and middle management, we're seeing career professionals choosing to leave Nigeria at this point in time. So there's also a socioeconomic angle to this conversation. We also see single people, young adults, as well as young families deciding to leave the country. Why is it important for us to take note of who is leaving?
It is quite important. So over the years, we've always heard that those who want to leave the country are medical practitioners. Even at some point, some study shows that people actually get married just because they feel the spouse has a better chance of getting them a visa into Canada, US, UK, where a lot of them are looking for healthcare givers. But now I think the narrative is beginning to change because there are other jobs, skilled work apart from health now that is being appreciated out there. And talk about tech, talk about data analysts, talk about journalists, talk about bankers, finance experts. Everyone is now looking to tap some of these hybrid or top brains from Nigeria now. And also foreign countries had to lose a number of people due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people died during that period. There is a gap also. They need to fill them. And they probably do not have that much population to fill that. Of course, they open their gates out to other countries of the world. And Nigeria is, of course, the most populous African nation. So we have bound a lot of people. So that's really an opportunity or means for them to attract some of these top skilled workers into your economy. But that's the sense. Right now, we have a whole lot of career opportunities now that has been appreciated on a global scale, not just health. But it's quite important to look at this because for Nigeria now, you want to ensure that the economy grows. Some of these key areas are where you actually do need people to help propel growth in your economy. And these are the people that are leaving. It more or less it puts us a step behind. But of course, it's always a win-win when you look at it from all sides.
All right, so you're going to have to prove how much of a win-win it is when we come back from the break. And we'll also look at the data, the net immigration number. Is this really something for us to be worried about in a country with over 200 million people? The conversation on how Nigeria's JAPA trend, as it's called, could impact the economy continues after this. With one of the highest inflation rates in Africa at 18.6% as of June 2022, standard of living, cost of living, and more are some of the push factors for migration from Nigeria. Unemployment in the country showed that an estimated 40 million Nigerians are also without jobs. Samuel Oyekanmi of Nairametrics, a leading financial information company, is still with me as we look at the JAPA trend in the country. So Samuel, let's look at this in terms of migration and immigration and the data around it. So Nigeria's current net migration rate is minus 0.28% per thousand. And this means that any given year, about 1,000 Nigerians, out of 1,000 Nigerians, around 288 people are immigrating. That adds up to around 56,000 Nigerians per year, plus or minus, let's even say 60 for this conversation. With the population of over 200 million, is migration really an issue that we need to worry about? Is the number of people leaving really of concern for us?
Well, when people leave the country, it's a question of why they are leaving. So if they are leaving because they are going there they are exporting our talents to the world, I think that's a good one. But in this case, in Nigeria, the reason they are leaving is because they do not feel Nigeria is safe from different facets, right? And that's really a worry. That's why it's a worry. On a good day, if Nigerians are leaving and they are doing great exploits in other shores, I think that's a fine thing, because we have some top Nigerians really doing well in multinationals, even across political positions in other countries of the world. That would have been a good thing. But then they are leaving because they do not feel the country is safe. They do not feel the country is probably managed well enough. And that's really a worry. In 2017, we had about 300,000 people leave Nigeria out of about 200 million people. And right now, we are having minus 0.28 net migration rates. That's worrisome because of the reason they are leaving. And going back to the win-win, of course, when they leave the country, they still have their families in Nigeria. They will be sending remittances. And of course, every country really, especially for developing economies like Nigeria, we require remittances to also boost our FX flow in the country. And that will probably help because right now in Nigeria, we do need as much FX inflow as possible. You can see the volatility in the currency rate in the past 2-3 weeks, which is an evidence of the fact that there's not much dollar in the economy. But when we do have as much remittances coming into the country, that could help alongside some other economic fundamentals. We'll probably see some more liquidity in terms of FX. So yeah, when they leave, they have families in Nigeria that will send money home. That would help boost liquidity. So it could have been a win-win, but the reason they are leaving now is not very palatable, to be frank.
So let's expand it. So you talked a bit now in terms of the impact on the labor markets. We've talked about in terms of losing skilled work, upper middle management, skilled professionals who have expertise and years of work. In larger economic context, you've mentioned foreign remittances coming in, of course, the cash flow situation. But beyond that, this is another family that has left. That's one less child in school somewhere, one less person shopping in the market, one less person circulating money around our economy as it may be. So what's the larger economic impact for this type of migration for us?
Okay, so economic growth is dependent on productivity, and productivity is dependent on the amount of productive people in the economy. I do say this most times, that Nigeria boasts of the largest economy in Africa, and that's basically because we have a large population force. If you take away population and calculate our GDP per capita, it just tells you that Nigeria is really not into right home. If you compare it, if you are doing a GDP per capita now for Africa, Nigeria ranks 17, despite ranking first when it comes to aggregate GDP. The same thing for GNI, gross national income per capita. Nigeria is ranked 20 in Africa, despite the fact that we have the largest GNI in Africa. It tells you that population-wise, we do need this working population in order to ensure that we are still called the largest economy in Africa. And if they are leaving, the downside effect is that it's going to reduce productivity, because of course the amount of productive workforce are leaving the shores. That means that productivity would decline. But that is in logical term, yeah, on paper. But it doesn't mean that the economy would really decline when you look at it again, because if they are leaving, it is also the companies also want to ensure that they do not run out of business, they continue operating. Of course, they need people to fill in the space immediately, and that's why some companies have been doing a lot of succession plan in the past 5 years, ensure that for every position there is an alternative, someone who can always take over if this person leaves. The downside risk is if every one of them now are now living at the same time, which is not so always the case. So yeah, it could affect productivity, and productivity could affect the growth of the economy. But then the businesses would not also allow that. They will ensure that they have people who can immediately fit into these positions. I was talking to someone yesterday, and he said that banking services have been falling down over last week across a number of Tier 1 banks, really. And their justification there was saying that a lot of their IT guys have left, and that's a really big open space, and it's already they're already feeling the effect from either their mobile app or from their mobile services, really. So yeah, that will affect productivity, but I do not also see it affecting the economy so much, because we still have some very good Nigerians who can always fill these positions.
I like the IT points that you brought up. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, even though you only see hints and pieces of it here in Nigeria, maybe across the continent. And right now, the competition is fierce for those who are going to take countries and economies to the next level. If we're losing skilled workers in the IT sector now, what do you think that says about the future for Nigeria's growth? Because even if we say there's still a large number of people who can make productivity work, this IT sector, the next stage of the Internet of Things, fourth industrial revolution for Nigeria, is dependent on those who are homegrown and who understand the problems here and will find Nigerian solutions.
Interestingly, I would really want to probably create a scenario here. So before, some 10 years ago, if you are a computer science student, you probably study, they teach you Delphi, they teach you C++, C#. That's in school. They just teach you a little bit of theory. Then until when you leave the school, then you start learning some other complicated software, maybe around R or Python. Now, there's a real great migration now. Even while in school, a lot of people are now learning some of these complicated programming languages in order to keep up with the demands of the market. In recent time, even I as a statistician right now, I know a number of softwares that I can handle. But then when you look at the demands of the market, you see new and more complicated and sophisticated programming softwares that are being demanded by the labor force. And it has forced a lot of people to, even right from grassroots in school, start learning some of them. So when you hear some things that Nigerian students can actually do now, you'll be surprised when it comes to this IT. So I still do very much believe, yeah, it's a loss for the sector, but really there are a number of more people who can do it, who probably do not have the opportunity yet, or are still probably being stalled by this current ASU strike and do not have the opportunity to finish their studies to be able to join the labor force. But I can assure you that Nigerian students right now from schools are going through a lot of trainings in order to keep up with the demands of the IT world. Yeah, the demand has really gone up. We are really in a very at the height of IT tech-oriented world. But right now, there are a lot of people who are also, as much as possible, trying to keep up. Companies are also doing what we call they source them immediately. They are coming out of school, and they train them for about 8 to 15 months, and then send them to the market. So as much as you have sent, let's assume about 200 or 300 professionals into the economy in a year, and then brain drain takes about half. You still have half who's going to work and is also going to train the next generation. So yeah, it is a loss, but it is still going to be a big win for young Nigerians who are also coming up, who have had the foresight to be proactive enough to learn some of these skills, even while they are still students, or even while they are still job hunting, There are a lot of online programs that people go through now, a lot of certification programs that a lot of Nigerians have done during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think this is the right time to now put them to use.
All right, Samuel Oyekanmi, thank you so much for your time today. We'll be watching how this trend does play out. I know it's a lot on social media, but it is something that we need to keep an eye on. Thank you for your time today. And of course, there are a number of things that have to come with this JAPA trend, as it's called. A tongue twister there for me. But it is one that we must keep our eyes on, with policymakers and those in government watching how the economy could be affected from the losses or the potential for those coming up to fill the gaps. You're watching Business Edge. Up next is International Business Headlines. From an accelerated decoupling of the world's two largest economies to a discussion on whether China might weaponize its vast holdings of treasuries, investors are outlining how U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan trip may ripple across global markets. Haven assets settled as concerns about the level of military response from China dissipated, and treasuries sold off on hawkish comments from Federal Reserve officials. The yen saw an abrupt turnaround, sinking more than 1% Tuesday after its strongest four-day run since 2020, but it climbed again on Wednesday. Most stocks and equity futures did struggle for traction. Stocks made little headway in Asia on Wednesday and treasuries rose. The MSCI Asia Pacific Equity Index was little changed in a mixed day for the region that included a jump in Chinese technology shares. S&P 500, Nasdaq 100 and European futures fluctuated in narrow ranges. U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi is continuing a visit to Taiwan that has provoked an angry response from China. Markets are steadier compared with the wave of anxiety that washed across assets ahead of her arrival. But wariness was still evident in a climb in the yen and gold. The two-year Treasury yield remained above 3% following a sell-off in bonds on Tuesday, sparked by Fed officials indicating the central bank has some way to go to curb inflation. Saudi Arabia's non-oil private sector kept up a steady pace in July, albeit slowing slightly from June, helped by increases in customer numbers, purchasing, and output. The headline seasonally adjusted S&P Global Saudi Arabia Purchasing Managers Index for the whole economy fell to 56.3 in July from 57 in June. It dipped below the series average of 56.8, but remained well above the neutral 50 mark that separates growth from contraction. The output sub-index, a measure of business activity, fell to 59.9 in July from 61.8 in June, also falling below the series average since 2009 of 61.4. The employment sub-index rose to 51.3 from 50.7, its fastest rate of expansion since September 2019. France will have filled out 100% of its strategic gas reserves by November 1st, according to Government Energy Transition Minister Agnes Pannier-Runacher, as European countries prepare for fewer energy supplies coming through from Russia. Brussels is urging European Union member states to save gas and store it for winter, fearing Russia will completely cut off flows in retaliation for sanctions over its invasion of Ukraine. Last month, European Union countries, bracing for future cuts in Russian gas supply, approved a weakened energy emergency plan to curb demand after striking compromise deals to limit reductions for some countries. Energy ministers agreed that all EU countries should voluntarily cut gas use by 15% from August to March, compared with their average annual use during 2017 to 2021. Liz Truss could sharpen the Bank of England's focus on fighting inflation in a shakeup of the central bank's mandate if she becomes the next United Kingdom Prime Minister. The Foreign Secretary, who is leading in the race to replace Boris Johnson as leader of the ruling Conservative Party, has said she will revisit the remit that the government hands to the Bank of England. While the Truss campaign hasn't set out specifics, economists and observers see a few options for her government. With inflation at a 40-year high of 9.4% and set to climb higher, the focus for now is how to reduce the risk of damaging wage price spirals. You're watching Business Edge. It is Wednesday, which means it's time for our Women in Business segments. When we come back, We'll look at bringing more women into the cybersecurity space, talking to a pioneer here on the continent. Stay with us.